to start with, here we go. All right. So I wanted to talk about my journey in which I'm going to take you on a journey to discover some amazing animals that live right here along the coast of Perth, including the Swan Canning River Park. And so I'm going to start a little bit with some information about myself, who I am, and how I came to do what I do. So from the moment I was born, it seems like dolphins were meant to be part of my life. So starting with my name, which comes from the Latin word Delphinus, and that means dolphins. And so here, becoming a marine scientist, especially ones who study dolphins, was something I had already imagined when I was about your age, probably. And here you can see the reproduction of a drawing I made back in year 7 when we were asked questions, which was, what do you want to be in the future? And the only rules we had to respond to that questions that we could only draw it, no word to be used. And you can see it was pretty obvious already back then that I had in mind of doing something with dolphins and potentially scientists because of the graph that you can see here. And yes, this is what a computer looks like back then. So you may have noticed that I have a little accent, and that's because I grew up in France, specifically near a town called Chartres. It is actually quite famous for its beautiful cathedral, and it is not too far from Paris. And I study marine biology in a city called La Rochelle, which is right by the ocean. And that's where I had my first experience working with marine mammals. So my first research project was a big summary of everything scientists knew about harbor seals. That's the photo you see on the left side. And specifically the harbor seal living on the northern coast of France. And in my final years of my bachelor then, I had the opportunity to participate to what we call a necropsy, and that is like an autopsy, but for animals. So we were trying to find out what causes a dolphin death. And it's a bit sad, but it's also where we get a lot of important information for the science and understanding animals. So now, I'll be honest, I didn't get the best mark in my marine mammal exams, but I did really well in ecology, which is the study of how animals interact with the environment. So that helped me to decide to where I wanted to do my next study. And I decided to go to Montpellier, so south of France, and this time near the Mediterranean Sea. And during this 2 years, I didn't do work at all on dolphins, but I learned a lot about how animal responds to changes in their environment. I did project on fish and something's called color dissolves organic material, very scientific, but it's basically stuff that is in water and that affect how the light travels and how animal lives. So then from that time, something pretty exciting happened for me. It happened that I had one of my best friends was actually doing that particular master of research here in Australia. And she met someone working on dolphins who had a student just started a PhD and looking for volunteer to help with her data collection. I didn't wait too long. I contacted that person. I applied for a working holiday visa and I came to Australia for what was supposed to be 3 months. That journey brought me to Bunbury and the Dolphin Discovery Centre, which is 2 hours south from here. And so I originally planned it to stay for 3 months, but those 3 months turned out to be 9 months. Then I went back to France for a short time and returned to Bunbury again. And eventually Perth became my home. So I was also given the opportunity to lead dolphins fieldwork in Boundary for a whole year. And that experience really helped me decide to start a PhD with a new big research project in 2011 here in Perth. So my PhD focuses on assessing the dolphins population in the Perth coastal Mediterranean water. That was going from Rockingham to Scarborough area, and that included the Swan Canning River Park. And I collected over 4 years of data and finished my PhD in 2017. And since then, I had other opportunity. One of them is to go back closer to France in Zurich when I did 1 year postdoc, specifically doing a little bit more genetic and laboratory work. And I also had a lot of opportunity to collaborate with other colleagues here in Australia from different university or government agency. And with them, I ended up actually working on 3 coastal dolphin species that we have around Australia. One is the Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphin. The other ones will be the Australian humpback dolphins, and the third one is the snubfin dolphins. The last 2 can only be found north of Australia. So if you ask AI, the artificial intelligence, to create a toy versions of myself, this is what things a research scientist looks like. So I'm pretty proud of that. So now let's dig a little bit deeper into our coastal dolphins, which I'm sure you really want to hear about. So earlier I mentioned it, just now, I just mentioned it that we have 3 different species of coastal dolphins. And here in Perth, the species have been studied the most is the Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphins. So the dolphins belong to a group of animals called cetaceans, which include whales, dolphins, and porpoises. The dolphin itself are also part of a smaller family, which is called the Delphinidae. And it separates them from the whales. The separation is mainly done from the fact that one big difference you have between dolphins and whales is that dolphins have teeth, while the whales have baleen, which looks like a comb and helps them filter the water, the food from the water. Dolphins, like all the cetaceans, are protected by law, not just in Australia, but around the world. And in Australia, there are 3 important laws that help protect them. One of them is the national ones is the Environment Protected Protections and Biodiversity Conservation Act. And then the 2 state-wise would be the Biodiversity Conservation Act and the Animal Welfare Act. So this law will help make sure the dolphins are safe from harm. And for example, one rule is that if you are on a boat and you see dolphins, you must stay at least 100 meters away to avoid disturbing them. So dolphins can go quite big, up to 2.6 meter long when they're adult. That's taller than most grown-up adult and much taller than you probably are. You can see that a little bit on the graph with a comparison of the dolphin size with humans. And because of their size, they can also weigh up to 230 kilograms. That's heavier than 3 adults combined. The female dolphins can live up to 40 years, and the males usually live a few years less. If you don't know when a dolphin was born, the scientists can estimate its age by looking at a tooth slice, kind of like how you count rings in a tree to see how old it is. So that's the image you can see with the little red dot, where that actually gives you the age of that animal when you count them. Dolphins are also slow reproducer. They become adult around 10 years of age, and their pregnancy lasts for almost 1 year. And after birth, the calf will stay with their mom for about 3 to 5 years of age. And that's the times where they learn how to survive, how to catch fish, and navigate into their environment. And during that time, the mom won't have another baby. And dolphins usually have one calf at a time. So now that you know a little bit more about the Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphins and that they are a protected animal, you might be wondering, how do scientists help look after them? So one of the most important way is through research. And by studying dolphins, we can learn about their health, where they live, what they eat, and what they and how they behave. This helps us understand what they need to survive and how we can protect them. So let's dive into how we study dolphin. So this is only one way I'm presenting here, but there are different methods. This is the way I have myself been studying the dolphin. And it all depends on the research question that the scientists have. Here's an example of the Swan Canning River Park that you can see in the largest photos. And then on the sides, you can see Chabbane Sound, so the Rockingham water area. And you'll see in all of them, there is either black or blue lines. Some follow the shape of the land and others go in zigzag or straight line. And this line show how we navigate the area by boat to make sure we cover the area as evenly as possible. And it allowed us to estimate the abundance of dolphins, so trying to figure out how many dolphins are and use the area, but also trying to understand how they use the area. So each area also have some obstacles, the places that are not reachable from a boat, or it takes way too long to survey each area. So that's also one reason why the way we do the survey in the area can be a little different. And during the surveys, I'm generally joined by at least 2 crew members who help collect the data. So as we move along our survey lines, we'll be looking at dolphins on both sides of the boat. And once we find a group, we'll stop and we start collecting important information. So this information is, we take photos of their dolphins to be able to identify them. We also record their behavior. And we measure things like the water temperature and the depth. So here on the right side, you can see a few photos of people's inactions in terms of collecting the data. And I should say here, because I mentioned it earlier, that there is a distance that we should keep of the 100 meters by law, but because we're doing research, we are actually doing it under a special research permit, and we are allowed to get closer to the dolphins as long as we are following protocol to ensure that we're not disturbing the animal. So among the data we collected, I just mentioned it, that we take photos of their dorsal fins. That's the fin that they have on the back of the back. And every dolphin is born with a unique dorsal fins, kind of like it works like a fingerprint, basically. So we take a photo and we try to match them to a catalog or other photos that we have to figure out who is who. So when they're born, their dorsal fins is really clean, quite smooth fin. But as they grow and socialize, the fin is going to, the dolphins are going to socialize a bit more, and therefore they're going to start getting scars, nicks, and notches on the age of, on the age of their dorsal fins. And sometimes this mark are caused by bigger injury, like sharp bite or fishing line that cuts into the skin. So while these injuries aren't ideal, and we try to avoid to have this kind of injury, they can actually help us recognize the dolphins more easily over time. So once we have all the photo together, we are able to build a catalog with each individual's dolphin's dorsal fins. And here is an example of what we've been producing since 2011. We call that a fin book. It's an identification catalog for dolphins observed in the Swan Carnival Park specifically. And if you looked at it, you will find the dorsal fins from the side, the right and the left sides of it. So you can even try yourself to recognize and identify the dolphins you may see. And this fin book is available on the River Guardian website if you want to have access to it. So here I had a little interactions. Now for recording purposes, obviously I'm not going to look at who put their hand up, but maybe the teacher could tell me what's the average come out for the answer. So I just have a couple of little games in which we're going to try to match an individual's. We have 3 photos that we have a number 1, 2, 3, and we can ask the student to raise their hand when I say who think is number 1, who think is number 2, who think is number 3. So if you can just tell me which one comes as the most, and then we'll explain why. So I give you 5 seconds before I call the numbers. Try to match these individuals at the top with one that is at the bottom. Who think is the number 1?
Got no hands up for number 1.
Okay, who think is the number 2?
Or we've got about 90% have said number 2.
Who think is the number 3?
Ooh, we've all gone a bit shy. No one's put their hand up for 3. So I think, yes, the general consensus is 2.
You guys are really good. Yes, it is number 2. And the reason for it is definitely that big notch at the top that looks like a triangle. This is a female resident in the Swan Carnival Park, and her name is Acuna. Second one is a bit harder. Give you 5 seconds. Who think is the number 1?
Oh, okay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got about 18 out of the group. So we'll see. We'll put number 1.
Who think is the number 2?
2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for number 2.
And number 3?
Number 3? We've got 1 for number 3. So it was 18, 9, and 1.
Wow, looks like you guys are really good at it. It is indeed the number 1. Yes. Some of the notches can look really similar between dolphins, but when you look at all the trailing age itself, you can see that there are some variations of it. So well done in matching those 2. All right. So now I mentioned it as well that we record the behavior of dolphins, and we generally use 4 different types of behavior. One is foraging, feeding, like you can see here. We also have traveling, socializing, and resting, which I'll come first. So here you're watching a dolphin's named Acuna. I think you can recognize the dorsal fin now. So she's using what we call the echolocation. You can see how she's moving her head along the wall. And echolocation, it's a special kind of sound that helps her scan the environment and search for fish. The dolphins make clicking sounds and then listen to the echo that bounces back from the object around them. So they do have here, but they don't actually have external here. That the sounds will come back on the lower jaws of the dolphin. And the echoes help them figure out where things are. And that could be also fish, but also rocks and even boats. And so here, like I said earlier, you can see how Acuna is moving her head. So she's definitely scanning the environment, trying to look for fish, and one of them just crossed now. This one, it's socializing. So you can see that amidst the socializing, sorry guys, this is traveling. Let's try that one. So you can see that the dolphins are surfacing regularly to breathe, and they keep the same directions and speed as they move through the water. So that would be what we call traveling. And then we have resting. So when dolphins are resting, they often float near the surface of the water. And in Australia, some people call this snagging because they look like sausage on barbecue. But dolphins don't sleep like we do. They rest by shutting down one half of their brain at the time, while the other one stays awake. And that's why they always keep one eye open to watch for danger. And there is another thing that is actually quite interesting, is that dolphins have to think about breathing compared to us, where it's an automatic system. So even when they're resting, they need to stay alert and enough to come up and breathe. And then we have the socializing here. So dolphins also spend time socializing, just like we do. They play, swim close together, and sometimes even touch or rub against each other. And these behaviors help them build friendships, form alliance, and communicate as well. So socializing is important for dolphins because it helps them learn, stay safe, and form strong bonds all together, especially between the moms and the calves, or between the males working together. And one other type of data that we're taking, it's involved tissue collections. But don't worry, it's just a tiny samples, just about 5 millimeters and 7 millimeters depth, which is much smaller than a pencil eraser itself. And we collect this small piece of skin and blubber using a special tool. And here we go. Now you may be wondering, what is blubber itself? So the blubber, it's a thick layer that you can find. It's a thick layer of fat under the dolphin skin. And because dolphins are mammals, like us, they need to keep their body temperature around 37. So the blubber helps them stay warm. They also store the energy and even help them float. So from the tiny sample that we can get, we will extract DNA, which will tell us about the dolphins, like whether it's a male or female, who its parents may be, how is genetically adapted to the environment, and other informations. And even from the skin itself, we can learn what the dolphins is eating. And so all of this is, of course, again, done with permit and ethical approval, and we follow strict procedure to make sure that it's safe and respectful for the dolphin. So now that we know how we collect data, we can take a look at what it tells us about the dolphins living in Perth. And I'd like to mention that all the facts I'm about to share were made possible thanks to the support of the partner that are in here and organizations as well. They basically helped make the research happen. And I also would like to acknowledge that this research was conducted on Noongar country in place known as Double Yeringan, which is the Swan River, and Double Nara for Cobenson. And I pay my respect to the Noongar elder past, present, and emerging, and recognize the important role of dolphins that dolphins play in their culture. So fact number one, so we found that dolphins in Perth are actually long-term residents. They've been living in some areas for many years, and that is thanks to the photo identification that we do and the regular surveys. So we've been able to track individual dolphins over time then. So for example, at the top, we have a female dolphin named Hamlin, and she has been observed in Chabbane Sound since 1994. So that's over 30 years, and she's still alive today. Her dorsal fins has not changed much at all, but its distinctive shape really helped us keep identifying her over the time. Another example is of male bottom slice at the bottom, which is a resident dolphin from the Swan Canning River Park. It was first recorded in 2001, but already has a sub-adult back then, and he's been living in the Swan Canning River Park ever since. His dorsal fins has barely changed, making him easy to recognize over the years. Now, from all the surveys and the photo identification we've done, we've discovered that dolphins in pairs don't all hang out together. They live in small communities, and we found about 65 dolphins living in Chabbane Sound, around 45 in Owen Anchorage, and today there are 25 dolphins living in the Swan Canning River Park, and that include a brand new baby calf born just last month. So the picture that you can see at the bottom with all the lines and dots basically represent a map of dolphins' friendship. So each dot is a dolphin, and the lines show who spent times with who. And just like in your class, some dolphins are close friends and hang out often, and while others stick to different group. That's how we know there are three separate dolphins community around Perth. And you can see that the dolphins from the Swan Canning River Park, which is in red, the square red, they don't actually have much line that goes with the dolphins that are from Chabbane Sound area. So they really stick to their own group in that regard. So within each of their community, and just like us, dolphins will have different kind of friendship and social bond, and this can change depending on their age, sex, and even whether they're raising a calf. So the female dolphins often can be spending time alone or with other females that are in the same reproductive stage. For example, moms with calf may form group together. And these female networks are said to be loose and flexible, meaning that they will change over time. But there is always one bond that stays strong, and that is between the mom and the calf. They stay together for several years while the calf learns how to survive. The male dolphins, on the other hand, form strong and stable friendship with one or two other males, and that's what we call alliance. The male allies help each other, especially when it comes to finding and competing for mates. Sometimes males even travel outside their usual home range or the home area to meet dolphins from other communities. So while female, they mostly stay close to home, the males can be a bit more adventurous in their social life. From the little samples of dolphin that we have, we also found that even so dolphins live in different areas around Perth, they are all part of one big population. That means that they are genetically connected. Scientists will call this a pangenetic population, so one big population together. And there are two ways this can happen. The first one, which is quite obvious, would be reproductions between communities. So sometimes dolphins from one area, like the Swan Canning River Park, will mate with dolphins from another area, like Chabbane Sound. And we've seen male dolphins from the Swan Canning River Park travel to Chabbane Sound to find a female, and then they take the female back to the estuary to avoid competition with the other males there. The second way is pretty much like what I did myself coming from France. It's the movement from place of birth. Some dolphins are born in one community, but later they will move to live in another one. And here we have an example of Hug, who was born in Owen Anchorage, but she is now mostly seen in the lower reach of the Swan Canning River Park. So the Perth coastal water are it's really big, and not all areas are the same. Some places are deep, some are shallow, and the dolphins use them in different way depending on what they need. In the Swan Canning River Park, the dolphins have been often observed in places like the Fremantle Inner Harbour, which you can see on the map that is circled. And then other area would be Freshwater Bay or Shelly Water there. So these are places where we've seen dolphins on a very regular basis. If we look at Owen Anchorage and Chabbane, which are the two figures at the bottom, in Owen Anchorage, dolphins prefer the shallow water. So anything that is less than 10 meters deep and generally close to the shore. So anything that you see in blue on the map. And then in Carbon Sound, the Queen Anna Shell, which is on the right side of the sound, and where you can see a lot of blue color as well. It's also a very important area for dolphins. It's shallow, like it is for Owen Anchorage, but it's also very well used by nursing females, so the females with the calves. And we also see a lot of dolphins foraging there, sometimes alongside a large group of birds, which tell us that there's plenty of food there. And so by studying the dolphin skin itself and watching them catching prey, we've learned a lot about what dolphins eat in Perth coastal water. And even so, dolphins are known to be opportunistic generalists, meaning that they eat many different things. We found that dolphins in Carbon Sound and Owen Anchorage have seasonal preference of what they're going to eat. In summer, they mostly eat fish like the sea mullet. And in winter, they will switch to species like butterfish, cuttlefish, squid, and even octopus, like you can see here on the photos. They actually have to toss the octopus to break it before eating it. So dolphins do have teeth, but they don't use them for chewing. They have to swallow their food. And what's really interesting too is that the different prey species that I mentioned, it all depends on seagrass habitat. So that means that seagrass meadows are very important for dolphins too, not just for shelter, but also where the food will be. And if we zoom on the photo that is on the left, am I going to be able to do? Here we go. You can actually see that there is a little piece of seagrass on the mouth of the dolphins. And that is from when he caught the fish before. So even though dolphins are well adapted to the environments, we already know quite a bit of them, we also know that they do face many threats, especially in busy coastal area like Perth. So let's look at what put them at risk and how we can help protect them. So one of the biggest dangers to dolphins is fishing gear. Lines, hooks, and net left in the water can entangle dolphins, especially young calves. This can cause serious injuries or even death. In the Swan Canning River Park, we record about one entanglement case every year, and these are often linked to recreational fishing. And sadly, once a dolphin is caught in a line, it's not easy to help. Removing the gear can be very difficult, especially if the dolphin keeps moving. The calves are the most vulnerable ones because they're small size and they have a thinner skin, which makes them more likely to get hurt. And many don't survive because of infections that is caused by the wound as well. Boat strike and underwater sound, that's another threat to coastal dolphins in general. Fast boats, they can accidentally hit dolphins. And we have the loud underwater sound as well from engine or construction that can disturb their behavior. So as you've seen earlier, dolphins rely on sound to communicate and find food. So noise pollution can be a big problem for them. And then we got pollutions in the water that can make dolphins sick and damage the place where they live. Chemical and rubbish and other pollutant can weaken their health and make it harder for them to fight off disease. One serious disease we've seen in Perth is called cetacean morbillivirus. Simply put, the virus affects the dolphin's immune system. That's the part of the body that helps fight off sickness. If the immune system doesn't work properly, the dolphin can get very sick. In the Swan Carnival Park, this virus caused 6 dolphins' deaths in 2009 and 5 more in 2019. So sadly, there's no vaccine or treatment for it, but the best way to help is by keeping the water clean and free of pollution, so dolphins stay as healthy as possible. We've also seen dolphins with chronic inflammations, which is a long-lasting swelling or lumps, like you can see on the dolphins here. Her name is Moon, and she had a large mass on her back. You can see between the blow, which is the hole where they breathe from, and the dorsal fin. And that mass appeared and then disappeared, and then it came back again. So it's not always deadly, but we still don't know exactly what caused this kind of mass. And then, of course, dolphins do have natural predator, and the main one is sharks. Calves, which are the youngest dolphins, are especially vulnerable. And that is also because, especially if they are in open and or shallow water where they can't escape easily. So some dolphins will survive from shark bite, but it depends on where the bite happened. So if the bite is on the back of the dolphins, it has a better chance of surviving, and that's because the back is mostly made of blubber and muscle, which can heal over time. But if the bite is on the belly or the ventral side, it's much dangerous, and that's where the internal organs are, and injury there can be life-threatening. So what can we do to help protect the dolphins? There's a lot of simple actions we can take to make a difference, and I'm going to provide a few of them that you guys could also do. So they're very simple, but they're also very powerful actions that we can take to help protect dolphins and their environment. The first one I mentioned would be to keep the ocean, estuary, coastal clean, so don't leave rubbish behind. And there are many community groups organizing beach cleanups, which are a great way to stop litters from entering the water. These events also bring people together to socialize and care for nature. And with spring in full swing, you might want to check your neighborhood for any upcoming cleanup events that occur. The second action is to dispose of fishing line properly. So even small pieces can be dangerous. And along the estuary and the coast now, you can find a lot of small yellow bins designed just for fishing line and hook, like the one you can see in the photo here. These bins are looked after by local communities, volunteers of the Village in Bin program, and they also record what's collected to help with research and awareness itself. And then the last two would be slow down around dolphins when boating and kayaking. So we give them space and never feed wild dolphins. It can actually change their behavior and make them rely on humans, but also you never know what you give them can actually make them sick too. So really, even small actions can make an environment safer for dolphins and other marine life, like seabirds. You don't have to be a scientist to make a difference. And finally, but definitely not least, and I already just said it, but you don't have to be a scientist to help protect the dolphins, and you can be part of what we call Dolphin Watch. Dolphin Watch is a citizen science program, which means everyday people like you, your parents or your teacher, can help collect important information about dolphins. So you can record dolphin sighting during walks along the shore of the Swan Canning River Park. You can learn more about where dolphins go, how they behave, and how their patterns may change over time. So when we collect all these informations, we really altogether get to understand better and protect them in Swan Canning River Estuary or anywhere else where this program runs. And other things to keep in mind is if you ever see a dolphin or a seabird that looks injured, in distress, or stranded, you can report it to wildcare hotline, and this helps the experts respond quickly and give the dolphins the best chance of survival. So just to finish up, remember, your eyes on the water can make a big difference. And I think I'm going to finish here. Thank you very much.